let's talk about what just happened. Because Cris Carter might have just picked a fight with the wrong rookie. And the backlash? Oh, it's loud. Cleveland fans, NFL analysts, even a few players, they're all circling back after Carter's viral take on Shedeur Sanders. And suddenly, it's looking like that hot take might age about as well as milk in a heat wave. You've probably seen the clip by now. Cris Carter sitting on a panel, voice raised, practically scoffing at the idea of Shedeur Sanders, a fifth-round pick, as he dramatically reminded everyone. Starting at quarterback for Cleveland Browns, Carter didn't just doubt Sanders. He dragged him, called him unproven, said he wasn't ready, questioned his intelligence, his readiness, his resume, and even accused the media of hyping him up because of his last name. But here's the part Carter didn't count on. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a legacy name. He's not just Deion's kid. He's been grinding in silence, letting his game do the talking. And now, people are finally listening. Because while Carter was calling for Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett, Shedeur was quietly stacking first-team reps. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. He was outworking, outsmarting, and, frankly, outshining his competition in OTA sessions and minicamps. And when respected reporters like Mary Kay Cabot start changing their tune, you know something real is happening. Let's back it up for a second. When Shedeur Sanders was drafted in the 5th round, a lot of people assumed he'd ride the bench, that he'd spend a year or two developing. But almost immediately, there was noise, the kind of quiet inside the building buzz that says, hey, this kid might be better than we thought. First came the rookie camp notes, calm, controlled, commanding the huddle. Then came the OTAs, zip on his throws, smart reads, no turnovers. Then came minicamp, leadership, poise, and, oh yeah, a growing number of first-team reps. And yet, through all of that, Carter sat on air and rolled his eyes. You think Shedeur Sanders is starting over Kenny Pickett? Over Dillon Gabriel? Yeah, actually, that's exactly what people are starting to think. Because what Carter and critics like him forgot is that being an NFL quarterback isn't just about experience or pedigree. It's about timing, composure, and proving it every single rep. And Shedeur, he's doing exactly that. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The name. There's no denying that being Deion Sanders' son comes with baggage, the expectations, the comparisons, the media microscope, and yes, maybe a few extra cameras at practice. But also comes with pressure to prove that you're not just riding your dad's fame, but earning your own. And Shedeur has never shied away from that. In fact, he leans into it. He shows up early. He stays late. He talks to the media like a 10-year vet. He treats backup reps like Super Bowl snaps. That's what's winning over the locker room and the coaching staff. Kevin Stefanski isn't just throwing him first-team looks as a PR stunt. This is about fit. And right now, Sanders fits the offense better than anyone else. While Kenny Pickett is still struggling to pick up the system, and Dillon Gabriel's reads look slower than expected, Sanders is clicking. Quick decisions, clean mechanics, pocket poise. It's not flashy, it's professional. And that's where Cris Carter might have miscalculated. See, Carter was so busy looking at draft slots and headlines, he forgot to watch the tape. He forgot to see the growth, the grind, the way Sanders has quietly erased the gap between developmental rookie and legit starter. And now Carter's comments? They're starting to sound less like critique and more like bitterness. Because here's the truth. Shedeur Sanders didn't just show up thinking he deserved the job. He's earned the right to be in that conversation. Not because of famous last name, not because of hype, but because day after day, he keeps proving people wrong. Even Mary Kay, one of the most plugged-in Browns reporters, had to admit it. At first, she thought Sanders would be a long-term project. But by mid-June, her tone shifted. She saw the footwork, the anticipation, the accuracy under pressure, and most importantly, the leadership. You can't fake that in the NFL. And Shedeur's got it. Let's not forget the context either. The Browns are in a desperate quarterback situation. Deshaun Watson is still a question mark. Pickett has been inconsistent. Gabriel looks like he needs time. And suddenly, the most stable, most reliable option in the room might just be the rookie. That's the part Carter didn't want to hear. Because if Shedeur is ready, then it throws everything into chaos. It means a fifth-round pick might outperform guys with multi-million-dollar contracts and years of NFL time. It means pedigree and polish might not matter as much as presence and preparation. And look, it's not like criticism doesn't have a place. But there's a difference between skepticism and flat-out disrespect, between raising concerns and publicly clowning a kid for daring to compete. Cris Carter went for the latter, and now he's eating crow. Because every time Shedeur takes the field and delivers a sharp throw or leads a clean drive, the narrative shifts a little more. And Carter? He's looking more and more out of touch. Let's not forget, this isn't a kid out there begging for attention. Shedeur is not making headlines off drama or sound bites. He's making them with ball placement, poise, and quiet confidence. And in a league that loves underdog stories, this one's starting to feel like a classic. There's also the broader lesson here about how NFL culture still struggles with young, confident black quarterbacks who don't fit the mold. Guys like Shedeur are often labeled arrogant for traits that would be called swagger in someone else. And that double standard? It's loud in this debate. Because when Shedeur calmly tells reporters he's here to compete, he's called cocky. When another rookie does it, he's praised for leadership. Make it make sense. At some point, we have to ask why some voices, like Carter's, are so eager to tear down a young black quarterback before he's even played a snap. Is it gatekeeping? Is it ego? Is it fear that the game is changing? Because it is changing. And guys like Shedeur Sanders are leading the way. Whether he starts week 1 or not, one thing is clear. He's already won the respect of the locker room, the trust of the coaching staff, and the interest of the league. And for a fifth-round rookie, that's a statement. So Cris Carter may have had his viral moment, but he might want to start preparing a follow-up. Because if Shedeur Sanders does get that start, and if he does deliver, that regret's going to hit even harder. And the best part? Shedeur won't say a word. He won't call out Carter. He won't post a clip. He'll just lace up, walk on the field, and do what he's been doing from day one. Prove people wrong, one throw at a time. So what do you think? Is Shedeur Sanders the Browns' future under center? Or is the hype just too loud? Drop your takes in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Because this quarterback saga, it's just getting started. But here's where the story takes a sharper turn, and why Cris Carter, he's not ready. Take is unraveling in real time. Because this isn't just about football anymore. It's about control. It's about legacy. It's about who gets to decide when a young quarterback is ready and who gets to wear the crown of a franchise. And maybe, just maybe, this whole firestorm isn't about Shedeur Sanders' arm, his footwork, or even his poise in the pocket. Maybe it's about power. Because for the last few years, the Cleveland Browns have been defined by instability. At quarterback, at ownership, in the locker room. You name it. Every season feels like a soft reboot. One year it's Baker Mayfield. Then it's Deshaun Watson with a mountain of PR baggage and a contract the size of Jupiter. Now it's Kenny Pickett. Try to revive his reputation after Pittsburgh cut bait. Dillon Gabriel, the mid-round rookie from Oklahoma, was supposed to be the long-term project. And then comes Shedeur, uninvited, unbothered, and apparently undeniable. The Browns didn't draft him to start right away. They didn't expect this much buzz. But now, he's making it really hard to keep him on the bench. This is the part that throws everything off balance. Because when a fifth-round pick starts climbing depth charts this fast, it disrupts everything. The salary cap math, the locker room hierarchy, the media expectations, the egos, all of it. And it especially disrupts analysts like Carter, who built their argument on the assumption that Shedeur will be riding pine all season long. You could almost hear the irritation in Carter's voice when he said it. Let's stop acting like Shedeur Sanders is the answer in Cleveland. He's not. He was definitive, condescending, as if he were closing the book before the first chapter even got written. But now the Browns coaching staff is writing something else entirely. Sources close to the team, without needing to name names, say the quarterback reps in camp are getting complicated. First-team snaps that were once Pickett's by default are now being split. The whispers that Gabriel would be the future have gone quiet. And every week, Shedeur keeps getting more comfortable in the system. He knows the protections. He's hitting his spots. He's not turning the ball over. That's not hype, that's tape. That's the kind of stuff that wins over assistant coaches, gets you into the ear of the OC, and eventually earns you a shot when the moment strikes. And maybe the most impressive part, the kid hasn't said a single thing back to his critics. No tweets, no interviews throwing shade, no passive-aggressive Instagram posts. Just focus, just reps, just growth. Compare that to the chaos Carter stirred up with one segment. And that contrast between noisy commentary and quiet execution is why so many people are flipping sides on this debate. It's one thing to criticize a rookie. That's part of the game. But when that criticism becomes personal, dismissive, or rooted in assumptions about legacy and ego, you start revealing more about yourself than about the player. Carter framed Shedeur as arrogant, spoiled, the byproduct of his father's brand. But you know what that sounds like? Projection. Because if you actually listen to Shedeur, if you listen to his interviews, if you watch how he carries himself, he doesn't come off as entitled. He comes off prepared, humble, confident, sure, but not delusional. He says things like, I just want to compete, or I'm grateful for the opportunity. You know, standard rookie stuff. But it hits different when the narrative machine wants to paint you as a diva. And let's not pretend that who he is doesn't play a role in how people respond to him. A young black quarterback, a social media presence, flashy watches, a famous last name, and a chip on his shoulder. To some old-school NFL types, that's a threat to the established order. They want humble grinders who wait their turn, keep their mouths shut, and never deviate from the script. And here comes Shedeur, calm, composed, media-trained, and absolutely unbothered by their expectations. He doesn't shrink in the spotlight. He embraces it. That should be celebrated. Instead, it gets twisted into arrogance. And so when Shedeur earns first-team reps, critics say it's hype. When he speaks with confidence, critics call entitlement. When he trains harder, studies longer, and stays later than other rookies, they say it's because he has something to prove, as if that's a bad thing. But here's the plot twist. All that outside noise, Shedeur's using it, not to lash out, not to throw shade, but to fuel himself. Players on the Browns have said it privately. He's always locked in, never distracted. And while the cameras chase Deshaun Watson, while the media pushes Kenny Pickett as the safe choice, Shedeur is working his way into the conversation, one crisp-out route at a time. You want to talk about leadership? Ask the receivers who trust him to get the ball out fast. Ask the O-line that appreciates his pocket presence. Ask the defensive backs who say he's one of the most cerebral young QBs they've gone up against. That's not hype. That's respect. And respect doesn't come from TikToks or family fame. It comes from putting in the work and backing it up, which, ironically, is what Cris Carter used to demand from young players. Put your head down. Earn your keep. Funny how that advice gets twisted when the kid following it doesn't match your expectations. Let's also remember something else. Shedeur wasn't supposed to be here. Not this fast. He was supposed to be buried on the depth chart. He was supposed to be a redshirt project, maybe a long-term insurance plan. And yet, with every practice, every clean rep, every little adjustment he makes, he's showing that the ceiling might be a lot higher than anyone, except maybe Dion, ever expected. And that's where this story really hits a nerve for people like Carter. Because if Shedeur does become the starter, if he takes the field in week 1 and delivers, it won't just mean Carter was wrong. It'll mean the entire system of assumptions around the NFL draft, legacy players, and media-manufactured narratives might need to be re-examined. Because what if the brash kid with the famous dad is ready? What if the 5th rounder becomes a franchise? What if the guy you said wasn't even the conversation ends up winning the job? At that point, the only thing louder than Carter's original critique will be the silence that follows. Because redemption stories, fans eat those up. But public, on-air regret from a former Pro Bowler turned media voice, that's rare. And Carter better get his notes ready, because the apology tour is coming. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask for the spotlight. He just refused to flinch when it landed on him. And now, with the Browns' quarterback situation wide open, the job might just fall to the guy who was doubted the most, who said the least, and who worked the hardest. It's almost poetic, because while the media talks about NFL readiness, Shedeur's out here living it. And the critics, they're scrambling to keep up. So if you're watching the saga unfold, whether you're Team Shedeur, Team Carter, or just here for fireworks, one thing for sure, this story is far from over. And the ending, it might just belong to the kid they said wasn't even close. Stay tuned. And yeah, somebody get Cris Carter a towel. The heat is just starting. The real kicker, all of this, every headline, every skipped rep, every mic'd up quote, is happening before Shedeur Sanders has played a single regular season NFL snap. That's the power of potential. That's the pressure of promise. But let's be honest, this isn't just about Shedeur anymore. This is about what he represents. Because right now, the Cleveland Browns are caught in a storm of their own making. For years, the franchise has lurched from quarterback to quarterback like a kid switching between video games, hoping this next one is a franchise guy. They've tried everything. First-round studs, veteran cast-offs, trade gambles, and PR disasters wrapped in fully guaranteed contracts. And none of it has worked. Enter Shedeur, a rookie, a fifth-rounder, and the only quarterback on the roster who doesn't carry the weight of failed expectations. He's not here to prove the doubters wrong in a generic, post-game soundbite kind of way. He's here because he never bought into the doubt to begin with, and that, more than his stats, arm strength, or pre-snap reads, is what separates him from the rest. It's what separates him from Pickett, who's still trying to shake off Pittsburgh's disappointment. It's what separates him from Gabriel, who looks the part but hasn't played it at the pro level yet. And it's definitely what separates him from Deshaun Watson, whose off-field history casts a permanent shadow over the team's future no matter how well he plays. Shedeur, he's got none of that baggage, none of the scandal, none of the bruises from a bruised fan base, which is exactly why the fan base is gravitating toward him like he's the next savior. Every practice clip uploaded to Twitter, viral. Every time he throws a dime in 7-on-7 drills, a new wave of YouTube compilations. Every moment he walks out of the tunnel with his usual stoic calm, 1,000 quote tweets about QB1 energy. And here's the twist. The Browns didn't ask for this. They drafted Shedeur to be a quiet depth option, a long shot, a kid with upside but baggage. They didn't expect him to outwork his competition. They didn't expect him to win over the veterans in the locker room. And they certainly didn't expect this kind of public pressure. But it's here now, and it's not going away. Because when fans see a quarterback working overtime, getting better every week, and not asking for special treatment, they rally. And when media voices like Cris Carter try to cut that story off at the knees, the backlash is swift. Carter's criticism didn't land because it was honest. It landed because it was lazy. Not NFL ready? Based on what? An assumption? A grudge? A segment that needed extra spice? Because while Carter was preaching, wait your turn, Shedeur was earning his reps. While Carter mocked the potential, Shedeur was in a film room with the first-team offense, dialing in every route tree like it was Week 12, not Week 1. And while other quarterbacks were relying on their draft pedigree to buy them time, Shedeur was rewriting the narrative one clean rollout at a time. This is a redemption arc. This is a reclamation of space, of voice, of respect. And what makes it even more powerful is how gracefully Shedeur's handled the whole thing. He could have clapped back. He could have posted cryptic quotes. He could have leaned into the circus. But he didn't. He stayed focused, stayed quiet, stayed dangerous. And here's where the locker room factor comes in. Because on every team, there's a tipping point, a moment when the players start to shift their energy, when the guy in the huddle feels like the leader even before the coaches make it official. By all accounts, that moment has already happened in Cleveland. Sources say veterans like Amari Cooper and Joe Bitonio have quietly praised Shedeur's poise and attention to detail. Defensive backs say he makes throws in practice they didn't think a rookie could hit. Even positional coaches, usually tight-lipped about depth chart movement, have let it slip that Sanders is closing the gap fast. You can't fake that kind of momentum. You can't manufacture respect. And most of all, you can't stop a team from getting behind the guy they believe in, which leads to the question everyone's too scared to answer out loud. What happens when Shedeur outplays Pickett again in preseason? What happens if Watson still looks rusty, hesitant, or worse, injured? What happens if the Browns, desperate for stability, start seeing Shedeur not as a future investment, but as a present? Do they ride the hot hand? Do they roll the dice on a fifth-rounder in a division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson? Or do they stick with the script and hope it works this time? It's a lose-lose scenario, unless you embrace the chaos. Unless you stop pretending that draft pedigree equals talent. Unless you stop clinging to reputations. Unless you realize that sometimes the guy with everything to prove is exactly who you want leading your team. And yeah,